Welcome to an example on how to factor a trinomial in two variables using the technique of factor by grouping. Our goal here is to factor 9u squared plus 3uv minus 20v squared. And we know from our previous lesson and examples that in order to factor a quadratic expression in the form ax squared plus bx plus c by grouping, we follow these 5 steps. So with minor modifications, we can apply these same 5 steps in order to factor the given trinomial expression. So step 1 is to find the factors of AC that add to B, where in this case A would be equal to 9, the coefficient of u squared. B would be equal to the coefficient of the uv term, which is positive 3. And C would be equal to the coefficient of the v squared term, which is negative 20. And therefore AC is going to be equal to 9 times negative 20, which equals negative 180. So we're looking for the factors of negative 180 that add to b or add to 3. So we're looking for two numbers that when we multiply them, we get negative 180, but when we add them, we get positive 3. This is not an easy question, and so sometimes it can be helpful to look at the prime factorization of AC, or in this case, negative 180. To do this, though, we'll first find the prime factorization of 180. So starting with 180, we could write this as 9 times 20. 9 is equal to 3 times 3. Both are prime. 20 is equal to 5 times 4. 5 is prime. And 4 is equal to 2 times 2. Both are prime. So now we know the prime factorization of 180 is equal to 2 factors of 2, 2 factors of 3, and a factor of 5. And now to help us find the factors of negative 180 that add to 3, we can group the prime factorization into two groups to help us determine factors of negative 180. For example, notice how if we took the first three prime factors of 180, 2 times 2 times 3, that's 12, which leaves the remaining factors of 3 times 5, which equals 15. So 12 times 15 equals positive 180, which means negative 12 times positive 15 would be equal to negative 180, as well as negative 15 times 12. And I actually think we have the factors we're looking for. Again, we're looking for two numbers that multiply and give us negative 180 and add to 3. And therefore, the factors we need are negative 12 and positive 15 because we know the product is negative 180 and the sum of negative 12 and 15 is b, or positive 3. Now, step 2 says write the bx term as a sum or difference using the factors from step 1, which means in our case we're going to write the term 3uv as a sum or difference using the factors of negative 12 and positive 15. So we're going to have 9u squared, and then we'll write 3uv as negative 12 or minus 12uv plus 15uv, and then we still have minus 20v squared. Again, notice how the sum of these two middle terms still is 3uv, but now we have an even number of terms which we need in order to factor by grouping. And the factor by grouping technique is outlined in the next 3 steps. So step 3, we divide or group the polynomial into halves, which means because we have 4 terms, the first 2 terms form the first group, or first half, and the second 2 terms form the second group, or second half. Step 4, we're now going to factor out the greatest common factor from the first half and the second half. Looking at the first 2 terms, notice how the greatest common factor would be 3u. If we factor out 3u, we'd be left with 3u minus 4v. Now looking at the second 2 terms of the second group, notice how the greatest common factor would be 5v. So if we factor out 5v, or positive 5v, we'd be left with 3u minus 4v. Notice these two products have a common binomial factor of 3u minus 4v, which should always be the case when we factor by grouping. So our last step is to factor out the common binomial factor. So in this case, we'll factor out 3u minus 4v. So if we factor out 3u minus 4v, notice how we'd be left with 3u plus 5v, which is our second factor. So this is the factored form of the given trinomial. Of course, to check this, we can determine this product and make sure it is the original expression. And let's go ahead and do that. So we have 3u minus 4v times 3u plus 5v. And we have four products. We distribute the 3u and then the negative 4v. So 3u times 3u is 9u squared. 3u times 5v would be 15uv, or plus 15uv. Next we have negative 4v times 3u, which would be negative 12uv, which we can write as minus 12uv. And then finally we have negative 4v plus 5v, which would be negative or minus 20v squared. Combining like terms, we do have 9u squared, and here 15uv minus 12uv is 3uv, so plus 3uv minus 20v squared. So our factored form does check. I hope you found this helpful.